Thanks for joining us this morning as we bring you the top 5 things learned at the Florida Apologetic Conference 2024, otherwise known as...
Come hang out with the cool kids.
Yeah, it was. So the conference that we're going to be talking about was a 2.5-day summit that merged apologetics and Christianity in culture. They had 8 keynote presentations, 10 breakout sessions, and invaluable networking opportunities with renowned apologists and influential personalities. I included the YouTube links for each one of the speakers in the description section of the video. It was in Lakewood, Florida at is it Grace? Yeah, Grace Community Church.
Grace Community Church on the front of the building is a dead giveaway.
Yes.
Yeah, yes. Right there.
It is. And so, yeah, it was a pretty good turnout as far as I know. We were kind of going back and forth guessing the number of people that were there, 300, 400. It was a good size church. And in the program, I think what went fairly smoothly. We had Dr. Frank Turek from Cross-Examined, Elisa Childers, who focused a lot on modern problems within the church and apologetics, especially the topic of deconstructionism, one of the things we're going to be going over in a bit. Dr. Chip Bennett, who is the pastor of the church. John from What Do You Mean? He was there. David Wood with his expertise on approach to Islam. And Michael Jones, which you may not recognize his name or even his face, but you might recognize Inspiring Philosophy. Vocab Malone for the street apologist, the guy who's going to give us insights on urban apologetics. Christine, and she also had a lot of great insights on what's happening with transgenderism, how we can approach that within the church and so forth. Now, we took a poll and asked you, what kind of topics do you want to hear the most coming from this conference? And it looks like it was clear across the board, pretty even, except for is Christianity recycled paganism, which had a clear lead. It is.
Yeah, and we need to do some videos on that.
Yeah, so that'd be good. Do a video maybe on like people accusing maybe Easter of being
that
related.
Would be a good one.
Yeah, it would be a good one.
Just hypothetically speaking.
Hypothetically, we're working on it. Okay, so I have a screenshot. Now, this is going to look a little funky because this is out of the program itself that we were handed. I did not have a PDF version of this to make a copy of, but these were the different breakout sessions and so forth that was in. And now there was one speaker that was going to be joining us and that did not. And that was Dr. Braxton Hunter. He was not available because he was fairly sick. He was in the hospital. And so they took his session out and they tried to juggle some other things around to fill in some of the blanks. But he was he's on this list here and it was not. But so you can see some of the topics that were covered. Everything from Michael Jones doing Genesis and Exodus and comparing Christianity to paganism. A lot of times you'll see a lot on his video. If you watch any of his videos now, he talks a lot about this, about how Christianity is being accused of just being another form rebranded paganism. And he goes through and refutes that. Dealing with Reconstructionism, unpacking the transgender narrative. And then there's one that was how to be a mama bear. Equipping our kids for a lasting faith. And this is really true. How are we going to guard our children going into what kind of world are they going to go into? When I was younger, I figured some of the stuff that culturally that we're dealing with now, we'd have to deal with. But honestly, it has come so fast. I would have expected some of the things that we're dealing with now culturally would not have come for another generation and a half. I would not have thought 30, 40 years, maybe the transgender issue would be hitting it. No, it's like somewhere after 2005 or so, or even in the 90s, something started flip and it just started accelerating the paradigm shift in our culture, accepting some of the, and I'm not going to say exactly what they all are, but you know what we're talking about. So we also have Yes, I see. I'm going to give it a second there. Christianity recycled and using apologetics within the church. The question is how we're going to do that. And this was really good with this that this church was holding. We, as a church, have to be active in our engaging the people around us and give a clear and contemporary message, not changing the gospel, but being able to address some of the questions and some of the issues that people are dealing with. Okay, so I'm going to check the comment section real quick. And yes, Michael Jones. I think we have a Jones fan in here. Look at this, a Jonesian. What are we gonna call him?
I don't know. They don't have a nickname. We don't like the Wingadings.
Yes, Mike Winger. They brought him up during the panel discussion. They were joking about Mike Winger, who was not there, who would have been great to see there. But they were talking about what the nickname of his fans is. What the
Wingadings,
the Wingadings,
Wingdings,
Wingnuts,
Wingers.
Yeah, so you can do a lot with that one. I'm not so much sure about Michael Jones, but yeah, did get to meet him. So quick story about this. I was holding a baby, and he was there, and we were talking and stuff like that. And I wasn't really talking to him directly, but I was a group around him and stuff. And he came over he's very stoic, just a straight guy, very serious most of the time. I mean, he'll laugh, and he was really lighting up with the baby. Not when I was holding the baby. Earlier, he was lighting up with the baby. It was good to see. And then I was holding the baby there, and he came over to, like the baby, and he saw the baby was sleeping. So instead of booping the baby's nose, he came over and went boop on my nose. And it was like, so far, I was like, where in the world did that come from? But it was cool. So I can say that
Wingalings. That's what it was. Wingalings.
There you go. Wingalings. Okay. Some of these names.
I should know because I was editing that video yesterday.
Yeah. So, okay. So, and also, Hutchie said Braxton Hunter, Trinity Radio YouTube channel. I have not seen this guy before. I'm going to have to check him out. He was, it was unfortunate. He was in the hospital. He was not able to join us. So I'm sure that he would have had some good material in there as well. And Christ Opportunity God. You got to tell me, man, that looks like it's Spanish. Oportunidad, opportunity, right? Christ's opportunity. Got to translate it for me. Once you take away God, all goes. It goes downhill so quick. Yeah, in culture. And it's so sad because so much of our culture originally was established on Christ, and now he is anathema. People don't, you almost see a visceral reaction with some people when you talk about Christ. It's just not wanting to have anything to do with him at all. And then, okay, you are a Michael Jones fan. We need to come up with a name for that. A Jonesian. I don't know. Something. We'll work on it. And then you're talking about Braxton Hunter does a lot on atheism. Yeah, some of these people were taking. It was really cool about a conference like this, and you can a lot of this material you can see on their YouTube channels. So we in our day and age, we have an advantage of being able to see these people directly. 40 years ago or so, you would have had to go or maybe see a film or maybe, I don't know, catch them on the radio or something, maybe see them on TV, but it wouldn't be on demand like we have it now and nearly as much material. Because if it's on TV, they would have been very selective on what broadcasters would have put out there. And you wouldn't have heard a lot of this material. But now we have it. So as much as there is darkness in the world and the darkness is increasing, there's a potential for light to shine even that much brighter too at the same time. So, and in seeing them in person here, it was nice because there was the interaction. You could do different things with them. And opportunity. Yeah. Okay. Spanish. I grew up in Southern California, and I don't know. I would say it would be a barrio because there was a lot of Hispanics there. So got exposed to that a lot. Remember getting cassette tapes of sermons, etc. back in the day? Yes.
Oh,
Yes. And I still have some of those. I have no way to play them on anything because I don't have any cassette players. And those do degrade over time too. So I'm sure if I did find a cassette player, it'd be like, and not be able to hear it at all. So, or a lot of hissing. Yeah, those were cool. So in terms of what we got in the conference, I'm going to go over the top 5 things that I got out of it, and then we'll talk to your brother in Christ here, what he got out of it, and if there's anybody here who calls in or shows up with more insight onto this, maybe they were at the conference as well. They want to be able to give some of their own takes on it. We'll put you up also. Number 5. These are not necessarily going in order. It was very difficult to get in these order, and I will also share some bonuses in here as well. But answering Islam. So this was David Wood's presentation. There are about 2 billion Muslims in the world today. We need to understand Islam, if nothing else, because Islam spreads in ignorance. And I thought this is a really good point. Understanding where Islam is coming from, you can refute some of their answers. And we could go on an entire live stream itself, 1, 2, 3, probably more, with your brother in Christ here with the knowledge that he has on Islam, and just really
read the sources.
What's that?
Just read the sources.
Just read the sources.
Please just read them.
Now, let's take a moment here and ask you, what do you mean by read the sources?
It's so bad. I'd say 90% of the time that I'm talking to a Muslim, they don't know what the sources say.
That's in here. Yep.
And that is a lot. Yeah, I didn't even see this presentation.
Okay. No, you're
skipped it. I've listened to it quite a few times.
Yes, you have.
And I've lived it quite a few times.
Yeah.
But yeah, just read the sources. Just read it. It definitely, when they say, well, this, you see, this part of here in the Bible is talking about Muhammad. I was like, just read a little before, just read a little after.
And read their own sources as well.
And read their own sources on what it is. They really don't have a grasp of what they believe. They just take on. In fact, I was talking to someone, I think it was yesterday, who was talking about a relative of theirs that's a Muslim woman. And they said, hey, what about the wife beating section in the Quran? And the woman said, I never heard of it. I never read it. So I asked, do you ever read the Quran? She said, no. Why would I do that? That's for the men. The men read the books. I just follow whatever they say. And they're like, but isn't this important?
Yeah.
Aren't you supposed to know what this says? The answer is no. Empty memorization is what they value more than anything else. So they'll memorize it in Arabic, which they don't speak. They don't know what it actually means or any grasp of the language themselves. They'll just repeat sounds. Now,
there might be different approaches or you might have different interactions with in different parts of the world. You might have people that do know more than, but I would say it's even true in different places like Pakistan too, where you have Muslims from Pakistan. We were speaking to one last night, and
I've debated Muslims from Pakistan.
Yeah,
and in Urdu, and it's the same.
Now, you weren't speaking Urdu.
No,
right?
It was translated.
Okay, back and forth. But they were speaking Urdu, and
they were speaking Urdu. They were I had a translator translate it into English, and then I would just respond. Eventually, the Muslim told all the Muslims in the chat not to come up and talk.
Because he didn't have a good response.
Let me see. He said, "Don't be stupid like me. Don't come up here and talk to him."
Wow. Okay, so just read the Quran to realize how great the poetry is. I think
it might be being.
I think you might be sarcastic there. It's a little bit. I'm taking it on faith that it is. Thomas Hall said, "Internet has taken the place of universities and salons. Before that is a place of ideas. I kind of wish I had a speaker's corner here." Now you're in Australia, if I remember correctly, And here in America, you pretty much don't need Speaker's Corner because we do have it
it's everywhere
as a right in the Constitution. However, sometimes we need to fight for that and remind people that, hey, we can. Of course, in private places,
there are some
restrictions and regulations, but
that's the exception. No,
but in all, and so he said,
nope,
no, Florida. Wait a minute.
What? No, dude. If you were in Florida, where were you, man?
Well, we were in. This is near. This is near Tampa.
Conference with us. That would have been great.
Yeah, that would have been cool. This is in Tampa. I thought you were. Okay. Maybe I got you confused with another brother who is regular who joins us. But I guess you can say Florida's down under from the northern section of the country. But yeah, we have free speech here, right? So for the most part, you can exercise that. Because I do talk to people in the UK and they don't really have that, right? That's where they have Speaker's Corner, which is now really taken over by Muslims, and you try to say something there and they'll hunt you down. And if there's any question about that, look at videos of Hatun Tash and other people where they actually are attacked. Really tragic. I can't watch Robert Spencer. His laugh is too contagious.
That's a good thing.
That is true. And Hutchie says Scotland is about to be silenced. New hate speech laws as of eight. That is so stupid. That is so stupid. We have. I look at what's happening in the UK, and I look where we were, and I just, men of old would be rolling in their graves right now, with what's happening. But anyway, continue. And this is an example of why we need to continue to fight for this. Don't let this happen. I mean, you have to be active with this. And Thomas also said, I couldn't get out of work. Florida is a big state too. That is true. That is true. And
it's not very wide.
No, very long. But
very long, not very wide.
I guess it's kind of ignorant to say, but it's Florida. Okay, I live on the Panhandle, dude. I'm right next to Alabama. There's no way.
I'm slightly Florida.
Yeah, I'm slightly Florida.
I'm Florida adjacent.
That was one thing that I would say would possibly be a criticism, or not a criticism. It's something they can prove with the conference. They said 3 days, but it's really 2. They could have done this on a weekend because the first day was a Monday and it was just an evening session. Well, that could have been Friday, right? And then Saturday and Sunday could have been the 2 conferences, and this would have taken place of maybe a Sunday morning worship service, because there was worship there too before we started the conference in the morning, and then the evening they had a worship session as well. So
basically all day church.
It kind of was. So it easily could have been, and they could have had a bigger turnout. I think they were at the beginning, they were sweating bullets a little bit, saying that they may not have had as many people as what they were going to expect, and then they actually ended up being a big turnout.
Great.
They did not fill.
Turnout.
They did not fill it. They could have filled. There was a lot of empty seats. They could have done more. And but yeah, on a weekend, more people could have attended because of work. Now I took off work, so I could be down there, but a lot of people couldn't. You got to prioritize. And then the country of enlightenment silence. Yep,
that's what we're looking at.
Yeah, it is spreading this way. Yes, as much as I wouldn't. So, yep. So back to the presentation. There were 2 billion Muslims in the world today. So this is one reason. If you look at what's happening even in the UK, I believe London do they still have a Muslim mayor? You can have very liberal Muslims maybe doing things, but just wait, man. There's a certain percentage. Once they get up to a certain amount, it starts to cascade. And Sharia law, you look at some no-go zones in Europe, and you also look at some places in the US, and they're setting it up, right? Okay, so Muslims may make the best Christians because, for one reason at least, they must give up so much to become one. And
that's a good point.
Again, we were talking to one last night. We had I was able to join your brother in Christ and Elle on a live stream last night, And we had a brother join us last night who was a Muslim. And
Well, is currently an ex-Muslim, but was.
That's what I said.
You could use
was a Muslim.
Yeah, he was a Muslim, or well, okay.
Yeah. So
could be applied as he is still.
And I'm not going to say who this was, but and this is fairly common, especially in when they come from a place of origin, maybe Jordan or Pakistan or wherever, where there is a lot of the very close ties with Islam. As opposed to Christianity, the ties aren't as close. And so since the society is so deeply ingrained with Islam, and you've got to follow, your family's talking about, your friends are talking about it. If you turn to Christ, you are turning your back on that society. You're turning your back on your family. You're turning your back on your community. And so that's the way that they view it. And you're also saying, listen, I'm following Christ on this. That's huge. And once you do that, you're making a decision. It's not like here in the West or in Western culture where every head bowed and every eye closed. If you feel like you want to give your life to Christ, raise your hand. And so we do this in kind of a private ceremony almost, where we don't want someone to feel embarrassed. Holy cow, give it up for Christ. You know, you had all the apostles, except for one that we know of, were martyred.
Brutally martyred.
Yes. Not just like we're going to give you a lethal injection here. It was nasty. And for the Apostle John being exiled to the island of Patmos, you know, it wasn't good for him either. So I got one here. Thomas also said, abortion is now a right in France. We need to start missionaries to Western Europe. Oh my gosh. You know what? I've heard of places like Nigeria sending missionaries to formerly mostly Christian nations, which is kind of sad. But you know what? You got to reach out, and we have to. The old god Moloch raising his head again, and there was a really good line. I'm going to put a plug in for something here. There's a really good line about that in the movie Nefarious that we saw. And this was, and we did a review right here on it. And I was like, oh man, he said it really well. It's like, he said, you know, back in the day, this is the demon Nefarious talking. He said, back in the day with Moloch, you would, and he would describe, I'm not going to describe it now, about the process of sacrificing children for the sake of economic gain. The same, not always. Sometimes there are other reasons for having an abortion. I understand that. But for a large part, it is for, I don't want to have a child now. It's going to ruin my life. It will ruin my life. Not he or she, not my own child, my own baby. It's going to ruin my life. So we are still in that same kind of mindset. So answering Islam, we're back. We're actually going to continue this, believe it or not. Answering Islam, making the best Christians because they have so much to lose. And most Muslims know their religious practices very well, but tend to not know what's in the Quran, and I would say in the Hadiths too.
Yep.
That's there. And this is the point that you brought up earlier about that, right?
Oh, yeah. Doesn't take very much.
They'll know how to pray, right? They'll know all the practices and that. They'll know all the rituals and
5 daily prayers. They'll have them down pat. And then once you point out to them that the 5 daily prayers aren't even in the Quran, they are rather shocked. They're in the Hadith.
Wow. Yes.
Not in the Quran.
Yeah. So I got another comment here. It says, this is why almost all books and literature in the New Testament warn of false prophets. The dangers are so catastrophic that a false prophet will be a big part of the rise of the Antichrist. Yeah, this is everywhere. You've got to be on, even in the early church. There were heresies that popped up then. And that's one thing that I've heard Muslims accuse Christianity of. Says, see, you guys did not know. It's all mixed up. It had all these things coming. So if you have the true religion, the true relationship with God, is going to be attacked from all sides. If you have falsehood, not so much, because the enemy is very happy with what he has. So that was number 5, taking a look at Islam. But there's a couple more things here. This is David Wood during a presentation. The Quran 3:84 say, "We believe in Allah, in what he has been revealed to us, and what is revealed to Abraham and Ishmael and Isaac and Jacob and the tribes," talking about Jews, "and what is given to Moses and Jesus and the prophets from their word. We do not make any..." What's that? Lord, thank you. "We do not make any distinction between any of them."
Any of them.
And to him we do submit. Do you want to say a word about this and why Mr. Wood was bringing this one up?
Oh, this is talking about. I was not there for the.
You don't, but I know that you know this.
Yes, so they're claiming all the prophets, basically all the Torah and the gospel. Oh, those are revealed by Allah, and we believe in them, and we respect them, and they're all from Allah. And no one can change Allah's word, except every Muslim will claim that the Bible is corrupt.
Right. Yeah. So their reason for saying that, if we try to quote the Bible or whatever, they say, "Oh, it's been corrupted." And there's you've done videos on this before in the past.
Not according to the Quran. There is no part of the Quran that says the written word was corrupted. They'll say that people have taken and said, use their words to corrupt what was there, basically adding stuff to it using their words only for a price, but they do not find it in the book. So they go back to the book and they don't find what they're claiming is in there.
Right. So the Quran basically says the Bible, the New Testament and the Old Testament both, are the word of God. And the Bible, if you read what's there, says that the things spoken about in the Quran make it not the word of God. So the Quran proves the Bible disproves the Quran. So is that it in a nutshell?
Basically, that's it in a nutshell. And even Muhammad himself, they said, Allah said, if you doubt about these revelations that I am giving to you, go to the people of the scripture, which would have been the Jews and Christians, to confirm them. And it's like, I don't confirm.
So this was, I believe, this is the one that you're talking about. Quran 3:3-4. He, Allah, has revealed to you the book with truth, verifying that which is before it. And he revealed the Torah and the gospel before time as a guidance for mankind. And he revealed the criterion. So this is basically saying the Bible and the Torah were correct, right?
Yep. Now, a lot of Muslims will point to this one saying, see, what we need to do is we need to judge by the Quran of the older revelations. That's not what it's saying. It's saying, hey, they should all be in line, not, use the Quran as a judge for the older one. I mean, seriously, who would even use a later manuscript to judge an older manuscript like that anyway? If you have the original,
it's sufficient.
And you would judge later versions based upon the original, not vice versa. And it's really backwards. Someone we met down there, a friend of ours, pointed this out, and I thought it was a really good parallel to this. He pulled two $20 bills out and said, okay, so if I have a counterfeit and a real one, which one came first? The counterfeit or the real $20 bill? And I'm like, you have to have the real one first in order to know how to counterfeit it.
That's right. That's a good point.
That's exactly what we see here. It's like, no, you have to have the original word of God in order to try to make a counterfeit version of it.
Yep. And I'm going to put this comment up. He says, if Islam true, Christianity is true. If Christianity true, Islam false. That is
the Islamic dilemma.
Yes, that is it in a nutshell. Well said. So that's number 5. Number 4, answering urban cults. Now, somebody put in a comment in the poll saying, I would be interested in this. I don't really know what the urban cults are. So we're not going to go into this in too much depth. But we'll say that this is by Vocab Malone. This is his specialty. He's an urban apologist, street evangelist. So he'll go out and talk to people on the street in downtown, in urban environments, and he'll come across a lot of this. One of the groups there's a Black Hebrew Israelites. Now, there are the Hebrew Israelites as well. He does explain this in his presentation, that they've kind of expanded it as well to other groups, other people of color, Hispanics and so forth, to say that, hey, there's some part, you guys get to be a part of this too. But the biggest draw is basically the lie that you have the real people of Israel, the real people that were there were Black people. And that's your inheritance, man. And when you get to heaven, the greatest shall be least and the least shall be greatest. And you'll be able to, hey, your former people who were slave owners over you get to basically be lord over the other races, because your people have been so oppressed over the ages and so forth. So there is a great appeal of this to inner city environments. And he addresses this. And this is actually very old. I didn't realize how old it was. It goes back to the mid 1800s with some guys back then.
And it's just recycled because there were the Anglo Hebrew Israelites too.
Yes.
So you'd have both race. It's appealing to race. That's the whole concept. So you have the white Hebrew Israelites and the Black Hebrew Israelites, and they're basically saying almost the exact same thing. It's just you flip the colors.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, guys.
Basically, it is a cult. It is, but it does seem to be growing too, which tended to be a real threat. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to refer you more to his books that he's had. Barack Obama, that's a title here. Barack Obama versus the Black Hebrew Israelites, and he goes into a reason why he chose that title and so forth. And then more recently, his book, Street Level Apologetics, which I believe was last year. Yeah, really last year when it came out. I had the pleasure of helping him get that published and getting it.
That was 2 years ago, actually.
Yes, it was 2 years ago. Man, time is flying.
Oh, yeah.
So this was, I helped him format it and get it published and so forth. And he is going to be coming out with another one possibly soon. I hope I'm not
whenever he comes out with
stealing his thunder. Because he did mention it during the event too, that there is another book that is coming out. And it's going to be like who's who in that organization, which is important if you run across these guys. Now, I don't run across them a whole lot because I'm not inner city, but it's good. I think in general, good to know what these groups are about and why there's this appeal. Why would people follow this as opposed to Christianity? I think whenever we're offered something that speaks directly to us, to our own personal situation, our own family situation, our own specific group, we tend to gravitate toward that a little bit more. And I think there's more appeal in general for that. So then we have, now there's some little, this is a bonus round. This is not part of the five. These are bonus rounds. These are things that came out of the seminar, not necessarily within vocabs, but all around. The New Testament writers did not create the resurrection. Instead, the resurrection created them. Created the New Testament writers. The New Testament does not give us a list of do's and don'ts. And the example given was like, don't boil cats. It doesn't give a specific list because we could get away with it. Oh, it didn't say not dogs. I can do dogs, right? And instead, it gives us virtues against which there is no law. And if you love your neighbor as yourself and love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, you end up fulfilling the law. It's like sometimes you tell your kids they're fighting, they're arguing, but he did this before I did and stuff. And you could deal with each individual thing. So you just say, guys, just work it out. Okay. Just be nice to each other. And that's basically what we got here. Then we have logically, you only need to prove two things. Now, this is in general, that God exists and that Jesus rose from the dead. The issue, though, with this, and you can make some really good arguments for both of these. Okay, there's several arguments on both sides about both these issues. But the problem is, I found, and you've probably found this too, that logic does not have as much pull as speaking to the heart. Speaking to the mind is good. We need to be able to do that, but also speaking to the heart. And I find this more and more so now in this generation than in previous generations. Back in the 70s and 80s, it would have been, well, prove it. Prove to me logically. Even before then, in the early part of the last century, you would have been speaking from authority to say, because people respected the Bible, you'd say, well, the Bible says such and such, such and such, you've proved your point. Well, then when we pull away from that, we're pulling away from God, then you have to prove things logically and say, prove that Jesus existed or things like that. And you'd have to go through and give a logical argument. And people would use a phrase, well, I think that might be good, but blah, 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 blah. And then it became, I believe that might be good. And in today's age, we're talking, you hear people say, I feel this, I feel that. And we've gotten more and more away from logic and into just feelings about this. And feelings are important. But if we just base it on feelings by itself, it could be all over the place.
Yep.
There's no standard, there's no anchor to hold things down. So check the comments real quick. We got oh boy, got a lot of comments here. Sounds like, yeah, Nation of Islam for Christians. I think this is talking about what the
Hebrew Israelites.
Yeah, the white Hebrew
really isn't, but there is a lot of parallels as far as the elect knowledge, the hidden knowledge. You know, you're the special group concept, which seems to be universal in a lot of cults.
Yes. And Hutchie mentioned, with the decline of community, cults like this provide identity. Yes. Yeah, it is. If you look at the decline of communities, really, do you really know your neighbor? Do you know the person who's living next to you, as opposed to just you go through your daily routine, you talk to people online, you have connections there, but we do not have a sense of community like we used to in the past. And with that, we become vulnerable to all sorts of different ideas. Chris Azura said, I call Michael Jones IP man, IP from Aspiring Philosophy, man from IP man, Bruce Lee's sensei. Yeah, most people do refer to him like IP because he doesn't, I don't think he even really says his name much in his videos, right?
No, he doesn't. Yeah,
so he doesn't really introduce himself. And yes. Then Christ Opportunity God said, that is true. People have told me the scriptures don't matter. I want to see God, and I don't realize that they can see him through the scriptures. This perverse generation got the sign of Noah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep. Just looking at the itching ears, just wanting to hear what's there. So another nugget that we got out of this: ask an atheist for the definition of consciousness. Define that. Which right now, even social scientists are scratching their heads trying to really define what this means. It's very, I don't think they've been able to pin it down. Correct me if I'm wrong, but this is define what consciousness is. Very difficult. And define what evil is. Ask an atheist for the definition of consciousness, the definition of evil, and the cause of the universe. Do they follow consistent philosophy that can answer these questions without contradicting itself? Is there a philosophy that can do all three of these? As Christians, we have one answer that satisfies them all and is not contradictory. Number 3, dealing with deconstruction.
Now, remember, we do clips.
Thank you. We'll get back to dealing with deconstruction after a word from our sponsor.
Sponsor? You're getting paid for this stuff?
No.
I thought you paid for this stuff.
you
were the one paying them.
This is tongue in cheek. Which one right there? Okay.
Reliability of the Bible. This is going to be a little more theological and philosophical than some of the others, because what we're going to do is get into definitions and terms and understandings. So a lot of reliability of the Bible presentations, you get to see reasons why it's reliable, and I have some of that at the end if we have time. This is a little bit more about defining our terms. And so to do that, I am going to talk about a number of things that have happened within the history of evangelicalism that I think will help us understand this. Anybody know what's Fuller Seminary? Somebody tell me. Does anybody know what Fuller Seminary is? Speak it out. I got to drink your water. What did you say? Give me some more. It's debatable what they say about inerrancy. It wasn't always the case, but you're exactly right. So that's important. That's why I'm starting here. One more comment on Fuller. Okay, so when Fuller started, and this is us learning about ourselves a little bit, it was done in reaction to the overreaction that evangelicals had against the larger culture. In the 1900s, with the modernist controversy, evolution, all that, a lot of evangelicals, at that time largely called fundamentalists, as a general rule, not totally, it's a little bit of a stereotype, went into their church caves, only to emerge a generation or so later, saying we need institutions, we need to stop hiding from the culture, but part of that means we got to get ourselves educated, and we've got to have institutions, because institutions create stability for a movement. Part of that was Fuller. Part of that was Christianity Today. And Billy Graham was involved with a lot of this. So it's a very good thing. At the time, sometimes it would be called the neo-evangelicals.
There you go. So that's Vocab.
Vocab Malone and talking about this. Now, he wasn't talking about the urban apologetics at this point. He was talking about what happens in Christianity. The question about he was talking about the inerrancy of Scripture and where that was going from there. And I probably should throw this one in here too. Now, this was David Wood, and he's not talking about Islam here, but he was talking about violence in the Bible.
It comes up a lot with Muslims.
Yes, as you can imagine, and even atheists will say, well, what about the Crusades? What about the Inquisition? That there's Christianity is in all these awful things, and you guys are just as bad as any other religion and doing all this. So this would be a good way. It's something that should be looked at, and a response should be given for this. So this is David. We apologize for the poor video quality on this. There was no easy way to get
it wasn't
a camera angle on this, so he's a little bit backlit, but the material is good.
Anyway, so we're going to talk about what about violence in the Bible. I did not know this was more interesting to people. So, all right, now I know. This issue of violence in the Bible arises in a bunch of different contexts. You'll hear this from pretty much anyone. You'll hear this a lot from atheists. Hey, you guys are talking about God being loving and so on. You got this Bible filled with violence. Also from Muslims. And with Muslims, it's usually in the context of we point out, hey, what about jihad and terrorism, and look at Muhammad and all this subjugation and so on. But what about violence in the Bible? So, don't have time, obviously, to go through every single passage or every single issue. We're going to focus on the biggest and most important one. So, we're going to go through the New Testament. First, we're going to look at what the New Testament actually teaches as far as how you are supposed to be interacting with other people and what your attitude is supposed to be. But then we will look at some, and there are only really two. There are two passages that people go to in the New Testament to say that the New Testament is violence as well. Who knows what those are? What two passages they use to say, what's that?
Okay, so that was another aspect that should really be looked at this, and we're going to look at one other video here, and this is from David Jones. We know we have a Jonesian here in our group, so we're going to put this up. And this was a really really good one where it talks about Jesus and other pagan influence.
Welcome to Jesus and the Pagan Deities. First question, name the pagan deities. Okay, so we got Horus, we got Jesus. That one's a freebie, you're not getting that one. You know who these two guys are? Anyone know who these two guys are? Not Isis, no. Not Ra. Ishtar. Ishtar, heard Ishtar. Do you know who this one is? Nope.
Is that Mithras?
Mithras, yep. Anyone know who those three up there in the top corner are? Cool. That one's easy. This one's easy. Yeah, okay. Do you know who those two are? No.
Dionysius?
No. This is Osiris and Zalmoxis. You'll never get Zalmoxis. Zalmoxis was a Thracian deity. So, if any of you ever heard that Jesus is not special, he's just like these other guys. He's just another pagan deity. They all rose from the dead. They all died. They were born of a virgin, that kind of stuff. How many of you have heard that before? Yeah. Well, it's all nonsense. And I'm going to show you why it is today. So let's get started here. Okay, so there are two types of mythicists. Okay, these are people who think Jesus didn't exist. He was just a copy of pagan deities. You have the extreme mythicists. Jesus didn't exist. He was just a copy of pagan deities. You get a moderate mythicist. They'll say Jesus was just like other pagan deities, not a direct copy. They'll say, in the ancient world, every culture wanted a dying and rising God. This was just one for the Jews. You know, you could say it's like a theme in a movie. How many of you have seen that one movie where there's a rogue cop who doesn't always follow the rules, but he gets the job done, even if he bends a few of them? Yeah, everyone's seen that movie 100 times. They'll say Jesus was kind of like that. So not a direct copy, just following the same theme. We're going to debunk both of those today because this is just nonsense.
Yeah, so these videos
Just
are
nonsense.
Just nonsense.
Just nonsense.
These videos are going to be available. You're going to share some on your channel,
I'm going to
correct?
share some on mine. There'll be some on El Iso Elohim, my wife's channel. There will be some on Act 17 Polemics channel as well.
And Vocab, I believe, has some on his.
Vocab already has his.
His
out.
are already up. So again, we were looking at urban apologetics. You want to dig into that further. There's his channel, link in the description. Also, the church itself, Grace Church, I believe, has
some of the Q&As up.
Yes.
Get
Yeah.
funny.
Yeah.
I might have asked a bit of a troll question in such a way that the pastor didn't realize there's a little bit of a troll.
Yeah,
question.
it's not safe for work. But anyway, this is you can look at
Hadith.
you can look this up on his channel. I'm not going to put it on mine. It wasn't that bad. It was actually pretty funny. And I was watching the sound guys, the guys in the sound booth, busting up after the question was
Everyone
asked.
was laughing. It was hilarious.
And the head pastor wouldn't talk to him afterwards. But it was all good. It was no, I'm just kidding. They didn't know where the question came from. But
They do now.
They do now.
Because
Yes,
I put it in my video.
you
of
sure
it.
did. Dealing with deconstructionism. Now, I admit my own ignorance on this. I was not aware this is being an issue beforehand. So this is something I learned. A lot of this information I've already knew beforehand. This is something I learned during the event. So this is by Elisa Childers. She brings it up and says, basically, it's a little bit of a primer before I get into the definition of deconstructionism. Beliefs in our culture today no longer are assessed by what is true or logical, like what I was talking about earlier, but what is hurtful or harmful. Again, the feels. I feel like this. I feel this way, or whatever. You can't talk about this. You're offending me. You have to talk a certain way. Moreover, an example of what they mean by hurtful is the doctrine of hell. That is often viewed as a way to make people afraid or comfortable. Say, hey, you're talking about hell because you're trying to control people. I feel offended by that, so you can't talk about that. In the world's mind, since hierarchies are evil, you are your own determiner of what is good. Ultimately, that is whatever hurts you or others. I can do what I want because of how it makes me feel. It feels good, do it. The phrase, if it feels good, do it, came out of the 1960s. It has now permeated our culture in such a way it's becoming the golden rule of morality. It's not do unto others as you would have them do unto you. It's don't do anything that hurts someone else or hurts you. I don't know if it's just like what's that phrase when you have parents who, not helicopter parents, but I guess it's kind of that, is that you protect your child so much that the child is just basically wrapped in bubble wrap. There's nothing you can do. Oh my gosh. All this layers and layers and layers of safety around it. Yeah, make sure your child's not going to drown. But other than that, let the kid be the kid and so forth. So that was her approach. That was a background for that. So then from that comes the idea of deconstructionism. Deconstructionism was the idea that you have take your faith and ask hard questions about your faith. Go and explore, challenge why you believe what you believe. The problem with this idea of deconstructionism is it's missing a key element during this whole process. A movement called deconstruction is sweeping through our churches, and it's affecting our loved ones. It's disrupted, dismantled, and destroyed faith of so many. Some who leave the faith feel wounded by the church, others repressed by some of the moral imperatives found in Scripture, i.e., you can't do certain sins. Oh, I feel offended by that because I want to be able to do my pet sin. For some, it leads to custom-made spirituality. For some, deconstructing their faith leads them away from truth into agnosticism, atheism, the occult, and humanism. And the main thing with this is when you challenge your faith, if you do that with the ruler, the measuring stick of the world, and then reconstruct your faith based on what the world says of morality and so forth, you end up with this monstrous thing because the ruler used by the world is twisted. It's contorted in so many ways, and you end up with this house of cards that's going to fail. And everybody has their own house of cards because you're in this. It's your own way of, I'm spiritual, I'm not religious, I'm all this kind of thing. It's my own way. It's I feel this, I feel this, I feel this, and it's not based on truth at all. Where if you take, now this is the element that was missing. If you don't have the Scripture, if you don't have the authority of the church behind it, anything like that, when you go to you have to have that to rebuild it. You have to have, it's like trying to build a house without a tape measure, any kind of method of measuring. If you have the tape measure, the measuring stick of God, His Word, you can rebuild your faith with Christ. So that's the basic idea of Reconstructionism. Number 2, top things I learned during the conference: Christianity, recycle paganism. You've already seen a bit of this with Mike Jones when he started the presentation here a couple of minutes ago. So and I apologize for the really tweaked out version. I didn't have his original slides. It took pictures. And believe me, this is already trying to straighten it out. I was way on the side and was not able to get a good representation of this. I'm not going to go into this too much, but basically just show this to say there were a lot of things that were said about these pagan gods that people point to and say, well, Jesus was just a remanufactured version of this, or they made up Jesus based on these pagan gods. Like some of the things said here that they'll say that, Mithra was born of a virgin on December 25th and visited by shepherds. And Mithra was traveling teacher who performed miracles. He had 12 disciples, promised immortality. He sacrificed himself for world peace. His followers were promised immortality. He was called the Good Shepherd, the Savior, the Redeemer, the Way, the Truth, and the Life. His holy day was Sunday, and his followers partook in the Lord's Supper every week. Wow. I guess and Mithra, wow. I guess maybe there is that coincidence. I guess we're just pack up our bags. That's it.
Yeah, it's only skin deep.
It is only skin deep because the answer was that there was very little on this. It's actually true. If you dig into this, you'll find out that, yes, his holy day was Sunday.
That's about it.
That's it.
That's
it. So in looking at all these, and he goes,
1/7 of it. Got 1/7 of the days right.
Yeah. So obviously I can't go through all this. I would refer you to Mike Jones' videos on these inspirational philosophies. By the way, I don't agree with everything he says. There's some stuff that I was thinking about challenging him on some stuff, but I let it go. We may talk about that in another video. But all in all, he's a good guy, and he did boot me on the nose. So, there's that form of blessing too. So you do have but he went through not only Mithra, but he went through Osiris, Horus, and a bunch of other pagan deities or demi-deities that would have qualified, or people saying that, yes, this is Jesus. Jesus is repackaged version of these guys. And as you can see, no. And there's some guidelines to go with this. And what we need to do with these mythicists, what the mythicists need to do, they have to prove this. The burden of proof is on them. If they're going to come out and make this accusation, we don't have to prove the otherwise. They have to do this. This is them making these claims. Show where the correlations before Jesus were in the pagan gods. Show that they are not just generalizations and actually specific. Show the correlations predate Christianity. You can't say this other guy came along after Christianity was around. Say, oh, look, Christianity copied this. No, historically, it's the other way around, right? Show a casual link between the New Testament and pagan literature. And then show Jesus did not exist. All these are burdens on them. We do have an historical Jesus. He's talked about in the New Testament. And so this is a great illustration. This is the coup de grace, I think, in the whole thing. I think if you grasp this one thing, walk away from this particular lecture, you've got it. Now, I had to straighten out the video, so what I got was this. Look at all the pyramids in the world. Wow. Obviously, the Mayans and the Aztecs copied from the Egyptians, and the Indonesian cultures copied from the Egyptians. Therefore, the Egyptians were the original and everybody else was just mimicking them. Really? What does this mean? That, my friend, is a question we have to ask. It means that this is one of the best ways to pile up rocks so they don't fall down for a long time.
Yep.
I thought, yeah.
Simple answer.
Yeah.
Simple, straightforward. In fact, I think that is the presentation that I'll have out next week.
Good.
Is that presentation on my channel.
Okay, so this was a really good one. If you guys check this one out, this is good. Again, check out Inspiring Philosophy, sorry. And also you will have, I guess that
Inspirational
IP
Philosophy.
IP. Okay.
Now I gotta make a channel.
We used to call it Internet Philosophy, so I'm doing better. And then your channel, you're going to have this next week.
Yep,
this particular presentation. And ignore all the coughing and the babies screaming in the background. It's a good presentation. Then we have the number one thing, the number one thing I found in this whole conference. Number one thing I learned, networking. By far the best thing. Learning, and I got all sorts of pictures on my on the community tab of this channel. There's more, and I have a lot of other pictures. They're personal pictures with other people that I met in the conference. I didn't put them up. I don't have their permission to post them. I don't think they would be opposed to it, but still, I want to be able to talk them first before I put them up there as a public thing. But really great meeting all these people there. I mean, we did have to stand in line for food and stuff like that, but they gave an opportunity to talk to other people around us.
And again, that's what I say over and over again with these conferences. The most valuable thing is actually getting to meet people in person, talk to them face to face, because we can do this screen thing. And right now, you guys are in the comments section. You guys are seeing us. We're not seeing you.
Right.
So to sit down and have a meal together and actually talk and eat, that's a lot of fun. And we did get to meet a lot of people there. Again, this was like over 300 people there. So there were a lot of people, and there were people from all over the world.
And Thomas Hall said, I was blown away when 5 years ago, my son told me speech is violence. Oof.
Yeah, that's not a thing.
No.
But yeah, it's a new age thing that they're trying to push, that speech is violence. It's like, no, it's not.
You know what, though? We can turn that around on its head. what you say is very important. There's life in what you say. Your confession of Christ is the power of eternal life right there. So we could turn that around and say, yeah, speech is important, but it gives life. And you can also cut people down. You can also insult people, and people can live with that for a while. But then turn around to the positive and say, let's talk about him. So networking is extremely important, and we are also not alone in this. Yeah. You have people that we interact. One thing that was cool about talking and meeting these people is that they were like John McCrae. John McCrae is so down to earth, man. He's like as soon as you meet him, it's like he's your old friend, and just buddy up with him. And I said, it's good stuff. It's good stuff meeting these people and face to face.
Yeah, we're normal people on YouTube.
Yeah, it is.
We're normal people.
We're just normal. And here's the thing with that too, is that they're normal people who have studied and are bold about their faith. Every one of us can do that. Everyone. You don't have to have all this massive knowledge. You don't have to have a PhD. Michael Jones, I have a degree in theology, Bible and theology. He does not, but I will listen to him. Right? I will listen. We can listen to each other and learn from each other on this stuff. And we all have something to contribute. And study to show yourself approved, right? And get out there and be willing to talk with people. Our time on this world is short. Take advantage while you can. Sorry, a little bit of soapbox there. Thomas Hall said he was perfect candidate to believe it. His bio dad was abusive physically and verbally. Oh, wow. Okay. So this was... in relation to, I can see where that would resonate with him, that speech is violence. And that would be a hard one to work through. So we have coming up very soon, next week, boy, going from apologetics to the monsterverse.
They're all the same thing if you understand the networking part of it.
Right.
It's being able to speak the language of the culture and be able
to
open up doors that may otherwise be closed.
And that's what we're doing with this channel. We're trying to use ways to be able to speak to a people who don't really speak churchese, Christianese. They don't speak the church vocabulary. How do you speak to people in the world whose main focus is maybe entertainment, games, sports, and things like that? Maybe not main focus, but they'll deal a lot with that. And that's why we're going to be covering this in anticipation for a new movie that's going to be coming out, Godzilla Kong. That's just a couple weeks or so from now, I believe, right? And then we're going to be looking at Easter after that. We have coming up there's a skit that's going to be coming out, man. This is going to be hot. If you haven't seen
another one of our Skeptic Zone skits.
If you haven't seen the original Skeptic Zone, here it is right here. This was with the Council of Nicaea. We did a spoof on the Council of Nicaea. We're not saying the Council of Nicaea was like that. We're saying that people.
This is what they claim.
Yes.
And this is what they think the Council of Nicaea is.
Yes. It makes all sorts of claims to say, it's Emperor Constantine told them to make up Christianity. Oh, they made up the Bible in this council, and all sorts of other things, the claims that were made. And so we spoofed that, and then we talk about what it was really about afterwards. We're going to do something very similar to Easter, and then if these continue going, and it has a whole Twilight Zone theme with it as well. So looking forward to that. Again, want to thank everybody for joining us. It was a little bit longer than expected, but there was so much material we needed. I wanted to be able to give a good coverage for it, and enjoyed the interaction with you guys, and we will see you next time.